Hola! This is a quick video that I would really ask you to watch if you were thinking about doing an interchange, a language exchange with some native Spanish speaker. I'd like to offer you a protocol to follow, and I'm going to do the same with the people that we partner you up with the Spanish speakers. I'm going to offer a protocol that I would like you to follow that will ensure that you get the best out of the experience and that your partner also gets the best out of the experience. What you want to do is to have a long-term relationship with somebody. The more you get to know somebody, the easier it becomes to communicate. But if you kind of get off on the wrong foot, it could be difficult. And so what I'm going to do is offer you some suggestions to help you to get off on the right foot, to help you to get the best out of the person that you're talking with, and to offer you a way of helping the person in a really positive way. First, number one, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that's how we should use them, in that proportion. So when you are with that person, do your best to allow them to speak, especially when it's their turn to speak in English. Let them speak, let them communicate, let them get it flowing, okay? If you talk all of the time in English to them, they do need to listen to English, they do need to get into that understanding of listening and then speaking. But if you overwhelm them, they're not going to feel they're getting much out of it because they can switch the TV on and listen to somebody speaking in English. What they want is interaction. You've got to allow them that. And what I would suggest is that let them speak twice as much as you when they're in English. And I'm going to suggest that they allow you to do the same in Spanish. Okay? So that's a nice balance. That's going to, first of all, that's going to really help. That's going to help them to get into the flow and to get practice. But you need to do that because I'm going to give you the second part. And so you need a little bit of time. The worst thing that you can do to somebody is to constantly interrupt them when they're speaking. You don't need to. In fact, that's not what communication is about. Communication is about flowing and communicating. It isn't about getting every word right. Trust me, in our own language when we're speaking, we make mistakes all the time. So don't expect people who you're talking with to get it right every time. They won't. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to be nervous. They're going to be distracted. So this is the system that I'm suggesting that you use. If you've got a better one, brilliant. If you have, tell me as well. This is the system. This is how you work. You start talking with your partner and you allow them to, you ask them, pertinent, open questions. What do you think about? So what did you do at the weekend? What you're planning to do tomorrow? Just the usual conversation questions at the beginning. As they begin to speak to you, you have in your hand a pen and some paper, and you have it outside of camera shot, like me, here, outside of camera shot. And so the person's talking, and let's say they say, yes, because tomorrow I go to see my friend, okay? And down below, you write, tomorrow I go. Because later on you're going to talk about that. But what you don't do is say, stop, tomorrow I go. No, that's not right. What's that? Okay. Why? Because the person's in flow. Let them flow. Let them go. And you nod like this. This is what you're doing all the time. You're going, ay, qué interesante. Oh, you're in English. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Oh, really? Just letting them flow. Give them the confidence to flow. And all the time you're making little notes down on your pad here, but out of camera shot. See, it's an art. You've got to be able to write and keep looking at them. Not like this. Go. The person says, tomorrow I go, and you go, tomorrow I go. Yes, sorry. So you've got to kind of keep the conversation going and mark down what. Yeah. So you let them. Let's say you're talking for half an hour. When I come back round to times in a moment. You're talking for half an hour in English. 20 minutes maybe. 20 minutes. Let them talk. Take notes. Don't try and remember it. I'm telling you, you will not remember everything that they've said incorrectly. Take notes. Yeah. And then at about 20-minute mark, you'll stop and you'll say, excellent. Do you mind if I give you some feedback now on the conversation? Okay. They won't mind. People love it. They love a bit of feedback. They need to know what they've done wrong. They know they've committed mistakes, errors. They know that, but sometimes they're frightened to ask. So you say, well, can I give you some feedback? Okay. Now, this is where we come back to the feedback sandwich. We've all been brought up with a system which is to focus on what went wrong. Okay. And that system is not very good because it makes us feel very, very bad about ourselves and we feel embarrassed. And so in my classes, for example, I would do a dictation, 100 words, and I would say, right, there's 100 words there. How many words did you get right? And people would say, I got 30 wrong. And I would say, okay, how many did you get right? And it's very difficult for people to focus on what they did right because they're so accustomed to focusing on the errors. This is where you help people. So you do this feedback sandwich. What is a feedback sandwich? Something positive, then how they can improve, and then something positive. So you start with something positive, and it's just something genuine like this. You say to them, that was really nice. What I liked about what you said was blah, blah, blah. And you used the past really nicely, and there wasn't a moment in which I was confused at all. It was always clear what you were saying. This is really good. This is what communication's all about. Something like that. That makes them feel good. First part of the slice of the bread. Then you get to the meat, and then you pull out your list and you say this. You said, right, you said, tomorrow I go to see a friend. What would be a better way of saying that? There's a problem with the word go, right? Now that's very different to saying, you said, tomorrow I go with friends. That's wrong. What you should have said is this. That won't help them at all. What helps them is for you to feedback what they said and then ask them how they could do that in a better way. That's how you do it. How could you improve on that sentence? Something not quite right with go. And you're not saying there's something not quite right with you. You're talking about the word go. That's all. It's like an indirect way of bringing their attention to it. If they then say, yes, tomorrow I'm going to go. That's what you go. That's exactly right. Perfect. But if they then say, no, tomorrow I go, I think that's okay. Then you know that that's something that you need to work on with them for them to understand how to use the future in English. Yeah. But if they give you the right answer, you know that that's okay. And it was just an oral typo. That's what I call oral typos. Rubbish that comes out of our mind when we know perfectly well in our head how to do it. It's very common. Happens to me all the time. So then you give them the feedback, and during the feedback, you're always focusing on what they said and how it could be better. Yeah? What I would say, and one thing as well to bear in mind, when you're feeding back to them options of how to say things, don't give them 20 options on how to say something. It's a temptation, and I fall into it as well. We go, and you could say this if you want. And another way of saying it is this. And actually, in this situation, just give them 1 or 2 options. That's all. They don't need to know everything, all right? Later on. But at the time, if you give them 5 options, they'll forget them all. If you give them 1 option, they'll probably remember that, all right? And then as you come to the end, you close the feedback session by saying, so that was excellent. So really good, and look how many of those you actually knew, and so it's just a matter of practice, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's called a feedback sandwich. Praise, be lavish in your praise, but genuine. Then the meat, let them put their errors right, and then a roundup, more praise. Yeah, if you do that nicely, those people will be over the moon with you. They'll be so happy that you've been able to help them to put right the mistakes without them feeling like a bit of poo, all right? Which is what we've been brought up to feel like. Okay, so that's that. Feedback. If you've got a better way, or if you've already done these language exchanges, then you use your system. I'm just giving you one that I believe gets the best and coaches the person the best. Right, in terms of, and we'll finish, in terms of time, work on this principle for your own benefit, for you to get the best out of your interaction. If you're speaking 30 minutes in Spanish, speak Spanish for 30 minutes. Don't flip in and out of languages. Right? And if you're speaking for an hour in Spanish, speak for an hour in Spanish. Don't flip in and out. Don't do this. Bueno, el otro día, I'll say this in English because it's a bit complex. I went to speak to, no. The reason is, if you flip from Spanish into English, what will happen is you'll say the easy things in Spanish and you'll say the difficult things in English and you'll never move on. And I'm saying that from my experience because that's what I used to do. And I realized very quickly that I was never going to improve my Spanish if I kept falling back on the crutch of English. Yeah. So what some people do is they'll split an hour, they'll speak an hour and they'll split it 30 minutes, 30 minutes. 30 minutes speaking in Spanish, 30 minutes speaking in English. Some people, when they get confidence, say, well, this week we'll do Spanish and next week we'll do English, an hour each time. It all depends on what your mind can handle. Some people can't handle an hour at the beginning, but you will. Maybe if you're doing 2 a week, one hour in Spanish, one hour in English, whatever is right for you. Okay? And that's it, really. See if you can stick with this protocol. You know, be nice to these people because they're there to help you, and I'm going to ask them to the same, for them to be nice to you. Be respectful. Respect the times. If you're going to meet up, make sure you're there. If you can't meet up, make sure you tell them. And you know, people's time is very precious these days, so we need to respect that. Okay? We've got a list of people waiting to be partnered up. So if you, as a member, socio, if you want to start language exchanging, send me an email and I will partner you up. All I want to know is the level that you're at, whether you have a male-female preference, and the Spanish that you would prefer, whether it would be from Spain or from Latin America. Maybe I'll be able to do that, maybe not. It just depends on the numbers. Okay, because we've got a limited amount of native speakers up to now. It's building and we're contacting other academies. So let's see. We'll match you up as best as possible, but really level doesn't matter, because when you're speaking in Spanish, you're speaking in Spanish. That's the level. And when you're speaking in English, you're speaking in English. So it really doesn't matter about levels, but we'll try and match you up with somebody of the same level. Okay? All right. Brilliant. Thank you for your time. And we'll see you on Friday. We'll be releasing the next on the lessons. Okay? Friday. And it'll be about Friday lunchtime that we'll release them every week, the new lesson. Hasta luego, chicos. Muchas gracias por vuestra atención. Adiós.